Joe, the industry is obviously taking off. We probably receive more questions on the technology sector than any sector out there. Being a forefront leader with what you're doing in this evolving and rapidly growing industry, what are key points that you see that investors should really be looking at to help evaluate who has real AI, who's taking advantage of this industry most effectively, and who isn't? But from who is, what are you doing differently to make you successful for the future?
It's a fantastic question. I mean, first of all, I've worked in the technology space for close to 2 decades, and in the early part of my life, even did some research work in AI, and I've seen this really develop, substantially over time. And I'll tell you, like a few years ago, this was probably maybe 7 years ago. I was at a conference, and this guy named Greg Brockman gets on stage, who was with a company called OpenAI that just about nobody had ever heard of, and was presenting about this thing they were working on called GPT. And he, gave a small demo of it. To be honest, looking at it at the time, it didn't really seem like a fundamental breakthrough for where they were at the time. I think with the release a couple of years ago of ChatGPT, that really brought the kind of this seismic shift in people's understanding of what AI, where AI is now, and what it can do for them. And I think there's basically two categories of companies that are in this space right now that I think have a meaningful chance of building really substantial businesses. So the first category, it's basically what I would call platform providers. So these are companies that are either developing AI models, or they're developing, maybe hardware platforms, or maybe they're developing kind of ancillary systems, things like vector embedding databases, things like that, to support that kind of new GPT based AI that's really becoming prominent. So obviously there's companies like OpenAI and Anthropic and other companies like that that are building platforms. I think I kind of view these as like an enabling technology. So you can think of when the iPhone came out. Prior to the iPhone, there were many, many pieces of technology before that tried to do similar things. Apple actually had a product called the Newton. There was a, obviously commercial flop, but the idea was there that everybody's going to want computing in their pocket. But it wasn't until you had this underlying platform technology, like really tiny, powerful silicone, like antennas that were powerful enough to connect over cell networks that were omnipresent, that infrastructure to enable that. All of that stuff was the enabling technology that allowed that application, that device, to be successful. I think the second type of company that you're going to see be really successful are the companies that are actually building the enabling use cases on the back of that technology. And I think we're going to have a boom very similar to the SaaS boom that you saw from whatever 2005 through 2015. We had all these billion-dollar companies created on the idea that you don't have to go build custom software, put it in a data center, host it, deal with all that. You could have a deployment that could reach millions of users. And that idea was really powerful because it brought down the cost of the barrier to access, really great software. And I think what we're starting to see now is companies that are building that last mile of enabling technology on top of those AI platform companies. And so a great example of this is Cursor. They've built a fantastic business in the developer productivity space, just by taking your code base, getting it into the context of something like Anthropic's, Claude AI, and enabling that AI to actually be useful to you as a developer by giving you tools and giving you an interface and doing that context enablement that actually lets, the AI piece of it do its magic. And so I think there's a lot of companies that are building that last mile of, magic to use case. I think Banzai is another great example of that. We're building applications. We like to say internally that every one of our products, we want to understand what the Super Mario mushroom is of that product. In other words, what's the superpower that it gives to the customer? And a lot of those superpowers have to do with taking that last mile of platform AI technology and bringing that into the user experience. So in our Demio product, for example, we built the AI moderator that lets you have basically an AI sales rep or an AI support person sitting in your automated webinars, interacting with your users as if there was a member of your team there. And you can do this in any language, and you can do this 24 hours a day. And so what it does is it brings down that barrier to be able to access that technology by just having it directly embedded. And it also really makes it, just a much more magical experience for, both the attendee and for the company, right? The company now doesn't have to have this 24/7 staffing model and, think about language enablement and all that stuff just goes away. And they just let the AI do all the magic, and they just get the benefits of it. I think we've done this in a bunch of products. OpenReel, which we're using right now to do this recording, is a great example of that. Create Studio is a great example of that. Being able to create 3D videos in seconds or minutes instead of weeks, hours, and with a huge budget to go pay an animator to do something for you. And so with everything we're doing, we're looking at what are the ways that we can take that really cool advancement platform technology, and we can basically pull that into disruptive use cases where a company might say, hey, I've always wanted to do 3D videos. I've always thought that would be amazing, but I never had the budget to spend $20,000 to go produce per video to go produce a bunch of these videos. It didn't make economic sense for us. But now all of a sudden I can enable 1,000 employees in my company to all go do that. And I think you're going to see that happening. That's been our approach to it. I think you're going to see that happening across a wide range of applications. But I think a lot of those businesses are going to become very, very valuable businesses because they're basically enabling companies to do things they've always wanted to do, but have never been really economically viable, have never been operationally viable, and that AI last mile kind of makes that operationally viable. So I think that's going to be extremely powerful transformation for a lot of businesses. And I think AI is going to ultimately impact every single person that works in marketing. And that's basically the bet that we're making, is that if you're a marketer, your life will be impacted, probably already has been impacted in some way, but will be impacted to a greater degree over time by AI in terms of, it's going to be easier for you to do a whole wide range of different functions. The outcome is going to be better. The results are going to be better. You're going to be much faster, and you're going to be able to spend more time using your brain to think about strategy and about, how to communicate effectively with your customers. Not have to, spend all of your brain cycles thinking about how to do the boring stuff like implementing a strategy. And so I think so much more of that implementation is going to be taken over by AI. And I really think this is going to impact every single business in the entire world.
You've been very successful at driving home that C-suite culture and focus of customer satisfaction while
Yeah.
maintaining innovation. Clearly, you've amassed a significant number of acquisitions and integrated them very successfully to your business, demonstrating, I think, in the most recent quarter, revenues up over 200%.
Yeah.
As you look forward, how do each one of those pieces fit in your business strategy? And what sort of elements are you continuing to look for to help with your innovation and help maintain that customer satisfaction going forward, which you've been so successful at so far?
I think that's a fantastic question, Jeff. And I think for us, fundamentally, every decision that we make is ultimately driven by, how do we basically serve our customers? Again, how do we deliver that magic to the customer? I think it's much better to have a small number of customers who rabidly love your product than to have a million customers that are kind of ambivalent about your existence, right? And you've seen this with a lot of disruptions that have occurred recently, and I won't name any names, but there have been a handful of tools that were very widely used tools that have just all of a sudden kind of been replaced by a new and better product. And I think one of the big things that we focus on is making sure that our customers really, really love the value that we're creating for them. And ultimately, that we understand what that is and we understand how we're doing it and we understand other ways that we can continue to do it. And so in terms of our acquisition strategy or in terms of maybe new products that we're building or working on internally, we're being very responsive to what are the challenges that our customers are sharing with us. They're telling us, hey, I love this webinar product that you have, but I would love to be able to do video interviews too. And so we're looking at how can we enable that. Or they're saying, hey, I really love this 3D video creation product, but I would really love a better way to host my videos because I don't have a great way to do that right now. And so we're always looking at what are those opportunities to basically delight our customers even more than where they're already at. And I think our belief here is that marketers solve problems, right? Marketers don't come into a company and say, I want you to just redo all my systems and give me a whole fresh start. That's not the way it works. The average enterprise has 120 plus different marketing tools in their stack. There's 14,000 MarTech solutions that are out there in the world right now. So it is a very crowded field. And the reason for that is, marketers are very particular about, I want to solve this problem. I need to solve this problem. And tomorrow's problem is tomorrow's problem. And a lot of that comes down to just the pressure of that role. It's a hard job. There's a number that has to be hit, whether you're a CRO, a CMO, you're the person that's responsible for delivering that number that ultimately shows up in your 10Q or that ultimately shows up in your bank account. And I think the pressure of that means marketers are going to be very, very focused on problem solving in a piecemeal way. Now, that being said, our approach is help marketers solve the problem they want to solve today, and then give them an easy on-ramp to solve the next tangential problem. So if they've got a problem that's adjacent to that, like the ones I just mentioned, go from, okay, great, I'm creating videos to solve that problem, but now I need a place to host them. Okay, great. So if we can make that really easy, if we can make that a seamlessly integrated experience, if we can give them a great solution for that, a great price for that, meet all their needs, and maybe incorporate some stuff that they're not getting anywhere else, I think that's how we're going to ultimately be successful. And so our strategy here has basically been, as you said, do a couple of acquisitions, integrate the businesses, but also integrate the technology, so that our customers, as they're being successful in one area with us, they come back to us, and we can continue to solve additional problems for them. And over time, just consolidate more and more of those pieces of their stack under a single header. And ultimately, I think creates value for them in the sense that they're getting great products, but I think it also creates value for them in the sense that all these products work together seamlessly. And that's really been a big part of our focus. When you're building products, that's a little easier. When you're doing acquisitions, it's a little harder because you're starting from a product that might already exist, and now you need to go think about that. But I think we've already shipped a few really great integrations. Like we built an integration between OpenReel and our Demio product. We're working on a couple of additional, really cool things that we haven't shared yet. We can't talk about right now, but really excited to talk about in the future when they're ready. And so, yeah, I think that's going to be extremely powerful for our customers over time.
Now, you have great depth and diversification amongst your clients. Like you said, you've got big clients, you've got small clients, and you have a very large number of people who have tried it and mainly remain sticky because of your focus on client satisfaction. Do you find it a significant challenge internally to, as you roll these acquisitions in, that the team that's selling and the team that's servicing, they need to be coming up to speed and getting the clients up to speed as well, because you have so many new tools now to be able to offer the client? How do you deal with that challenge, and how have they been, receiving the ability to have this new tools to be able to solve even more clients' needs?
I think we have probably the best support and service organization in our industry. And I think if you look at our CSAT numbers and you look at our Net Promoter Score numbers, they reflect that. And that's a huge thing that we look at. We look at those CSAT numbers every single week for every single team that we have, to understand how we're doing. And we look at every single, we love it when we get the Net Promoter Scores that come in with a 10 on them, and we get, most of them say that. But we really
Yeah,
pay
tell the
attention.
people who are watching this what a CSAT score is and what a net score is, so that they
So
understand.
CSAT is a customer satisfaction score. That's a way of measuring when a customer has an interaction with our support team or our service team. How satisfied are they with that outcome of that interaction? Did we solve their problem? Did we do it in a timely manner? Are they happy with the outcome? Do we treat them well? Did we ultimately get them back on track? They were trying to do something, they got interrupted. Did we get them back on track so they could do the thing they wanted to do? A Net Promoter Score, this is basically a metric of how many customers would recommend your product to a friend, colleague, family. They measure two different things. In a way, CSAT kind of measures how's their support experience with us. Net Promoter Score kind of measures how's their product love or how's their product loyalty for our products. But as I was saying, like when we look at that Net Promoter number, you measure it 1 to 10, and 10 being, yes, I would recommend this to every single person I meet on the street, and 0 being, I might drive to your office and stage a protest outside. We love seeing the 10s because that's great. And as I said, we get a lot of those. So the ones we pay the most attention to are the ones that are the 4s, 5s, 6s, where they're not that happy. And we want to understand what happened here. So is this person not the right profile, customer for us? And we need to shift what we're doing in sales and marketing. Or more likely, was there something where something went wrong for this customer, and how do we get that back on track and turn them into a 10? And so we're just very, very maniacal about that. I mean, I personally look at every NPS that comes through, and our team looks at every single one of them, and we follow up every single one of those issues. And I think that's really an important part of our culture, that we care a lot about the success of our customers. Ultimately, we know that their success is our success.
Now, as a very focused, sales-driven customer satisfaction CEO, looking at each one of those elements that comes through and being able to drive growth for the future, you have a lot of challenges on your plate as well. Tell us a little bit about what your recent additions to the C-suite have added to Banzai, and how that positions you well for future growth, handling all the needs of your customers, as well as internal growth, which is obviously quite challenging with all the companies rolling in.
There's been really two key people that we've added in the last 90 days here. One being a new CFO, Dean Ditto. Dean has a fantastic background, and I think the reason that we view this as such an important role here is because ultimately, for us to be successful in supporting our customers, we have to have a healthy business. We have to have a strong balance sheet. We have to be able to make money so that we can invest that money back into our products and back into our customers. And so that's Dean's focus right now, is just continuing to improve the financial health of the business. We've already made substantial strides there. And I think he's doing a great job at that, and certainly brings a lot of experience to the table in doing that. And Michael Kurtzman, who's recently joined as our Chief Revenue Officer, I think his focus is every piece of our customer experience, all the way from that first marketing impression that they might get, maybe it's by an ad or a webinar or event they come to, all the way down to their experience working with our sales team, their experience working with our account managers after they become a customer, and all the way down to their service experience. We really believe that full customer journey, all ultimately contributes to customer happiness, and that ultimately contributes to revenue. And so we really take a holistic approach to the customer journey, customer experience, and ultimately the reflection of that in revenue growth.
In addition to focusing on growing the revenues and adding additional tools to help your customers increase their level of satisfaction, and as well as bolstering and making the investment in your company for the future by adding C-suite people, you have focused on also making sure that investors know, A, that you are here to stay, and B, that you have maximum shareholder appreciation in mind. Recently, in a very unusual move for a small company, but certainly one that showed strength, you retired a significant part of debt. And that was a large amount of debt for a growth company to take care of. Talk to us a little bit about that decision and what you think that adds for you moving forward.
Yeah, as I said, our view is that in order to do the best possible job for our customers, we have to be a financially strong business. So you never want a business to be in a position where you have to make a choice between multiple different stakeholders. Obviously, you have multiple stakeholders, but you want to be able to be in a position where you can make good choices for your customers that ultimately benefit all your other stakeholders, your employees, your shareholders, everybody else. And so I think from our perspective, cleaning up the balance sheet has been a priority because it reduces the number of choices that we have to make. It makes it a lot simpler to make big investments in new products, make big investments in better customer experience, better support, better sales, better account management when we have a stronger balance sheet. I made that a big priority. And I think we kind of look at this as a foundational thing. There's a parable, I think, in the Bible about the man who built his house on the sand and the man who built his house on the rocks. And obviously, if you build your house on the rocks, you're going to have a much stronger house, and it's going to last for a long time. And so I think that's been our basic philosophy, is just build a strong foundation for the business financially. We've already got great customers. We've already got great products. And so I think having that really strong foundation ultimately just enables us to do more of that.
As you look out, having taken care of all these elements, obviously the company looks significantly undervalued. And as a company that's in a very high growth focused industry where there's pressure on all elements, where do you see the company a year or 2 years out from the standpoint of positioning within the industry? And what do you do to make sure that you're receiving still probably a lot of interest because of the success that you had with potential deals to look at completing? How do you focus on the elements that you need and make sure that you continue to maximize shareholder value by bringing in things at a fair valuation, one that's advantageous to yourself, but at the same time, hang on to those people who are at that organization that were the keys to innovation so that you can integrate them to grow for the future?
I think that's a fantastic question. When we're looking at potential acquisitions, which we are pretty active, as you said, we're looking at a couple of things. Mainly, we're looking at the product value first and foremost. Is this a product that our customers are going to love? Do we think this is, even if it's not the biggest company in the space, but is it one of the best products in the space? One of the top number 1, 2, 3 solutions in that category. And from there, then we want to look at the financial structure of that deal. We've had a number of deals where there's, ultimately been, issues in the financial structure that have made us say, we just don't think this is going to work. And I think, so we're really looking at deals. We want to find businesses that are profitable. We want to find businesses that we think strengthen our financial profile, not weaken it. And so ultimately we have to have both of those elements. I think in terms of price, we look at this in a bunch of different ways, but we look at, what do we think the possible range of scenarios is for this business going forward? We want to ultimately look at, creating value for shareholders by looking at, what could go wrong, right? Because it's really easy to put together a spreadsheet to show what's going to go right. But I think where you create value for shareholders is, you pay a price that reflects what could go wrong. And sometimes that means the deal structure. Sometimes it means the multiple. Sometimes it means other things like that. So not that we expect things to go wrong, not that we want things to go wrong, but I think just planning for it in terms of the value that we're paying. And the reason for that is that way we know that every deal that we do ultimately is going to create value for shareholders in the aggregate sense. And so that's our big focus. Now, again, if we do enough of these things, sometimes we'll get it right, sometimes we'll get it wrong. That's just the way it works. But I think, in the aggregate, over enough repetitions of doing this, and many people on our team, including myself, have been involved in a number of these types of things for years, even prior to this company. I think having seen it happen enough times, I can tell you, like, sometimes you get it unexpectedly wrong, but sometimes you get it unexpectedly right too. And things work out better than you thought. And that's also great when that happens. And so really just putting ourselves in a position when those opportunities present themselves to be able to move quickly and take advantage of them. And you asked about, what are we doing with the team? I think when you're looking at integrating a business, the number one biggest challenge is the cultural integration, because people come from, putting two businesses together is kind of like getting married, but instead of just two people in the house, you move your entire extended family into the house too. And you have a different way of doing things. There's, maybe different holidays, maybe there's different traditions. Getting that culture to work is really important. So obviously, if you can find somebody that's already got a culture very similar to yours, that's going to be really helpful. But even beyond that, I think it's just making everybody feel like one big family is really, really important. And I think a lot of times leadership is a key element in that. Sometimes that means the best decision is that leaders should stick around for a little while and then should transition out. Sometimes it means that leaders should stick around for 10 years. I think it just depends on the context and really what those leaders want to get out of their experience as well. But we obviously are always looking for businesses where we think it's not just one or two people that make that business successful, where we think it's 20, 30, 100 people in that business that are making it successful. I like to think that at Banzai, that although I think I maybe create a little bit of value here, but I think if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I don't think it's going to dramatically disrupt the business. We're still going to have the same products. We're still going to have the same excellent leadership team. We're still going to have the same customers. So, we look for businesses like that. You can get into trouble when you have a business that's built around just one or two superstar people. And so we try to avoid that.
Well, with almost 4 decades of Wall Street experience, I can tell you I think you've done a very good job of positioning this company for success. I wish you the best in continuing to grow it. And thank you for taking the time to provide these valuable insights to people who might not otherwise have known the opportunity that Banzai affords them. For people looking for more information, we've prepared a very detailed executive informational overview that can be found on our website at www.crystalra.com. And once again, Joe, thank you very much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jeff.